Before the mighty Aztecs ruled central Mexico, before the Maya carved their stories into towering stone pyramids, there were the Olmecs, a people so ancient, so elusive, that their very name, Olmec, meaning rubber people in Nahuatl, is not what they ever called themselves. Their real name has been lost to history, just like so much about their civilization. And yet, scattered across the jungles of southern Mexico, these forgotten titans left behind something impossible to ignore. Giant stone heads, some weighing over 40 tons, each carved with haunting precision and detail. Who were they? And why did they vanish, leaving behind monolithic faces that still watch silently over the centuries? The story begins somewhere around 1600 BCE, in the humid lowlands near the Gulf of Mexico. This was a time when Europe was still in the Bronze Age, and Egypt was building temples to gods long forgotten. In Mesoamerica, however, a new culture was rising, one that would plant the seeds for everything to come. The Olmecs were the first great civilization of ancient Mexico. They built cities San Lorenzo, La Venta, Tres Zapotes, not of mud huts, but of complex plazas, ceremonial platforms, and engineered waterways. Their art was sophisticated, symbolic, and strange. Baby-faced figurines with almond eyes, jaguar men that hint at a mysterious religion, and those massive heads each with unique facial features, helmet-like headgear, and lips pressed as if in silent command. What shocks archaeologists most is not just the artistry, but the logistics. How did a people without metal tools, the wheel, or pack animals manage to carve and transport 20 to 40-ton basalt heads from quarries dozens of miles away? The stones came from the Tuxtla Mountains, over 50 miles from where many of the heads were found. No roads, no carts, just rivers, rafts, ropes, and willpower. The sheer effort implies centralized leadership, immense manpower, and a deep, perhaps religious, motivation. And yet, they left no known texts, no royal inscriptions, no detailed history of their kings or wars. Their script, if it even existed, is still undeciphered. Some symbols have been found carved into stones, suggesting the earliest writing in the Americas, but the messages remain locked behind time, so we are left to guess. Their religion seems centered on nature and transformation. The jaguar, often depicted merging with human figures, may have symbolized a shamanic journey or divine power. Their cities were not built just for living, but for ritual. Great mounds and altars aligned with celestial events suggest astronomical knowledge. Offerings of jade, serpentine, and obsidian buried deep in the earth hint at complex beliefs about the underworld. But perhaps the most chilling detail lies in La Venta, one of their major ceremonial centers. There, archaeologists uncovered 16 human figures arranged around a central object, all made of jade. Were they part of a myth, a buried ceremony, or something darker? Some researchers believe the Olmecs practiced human sacrifice. One site revealed evidence of decapitation. Others speak of ritual burials, possibly of elite individuals. If so, the Olmecs were not merely artists. They were a culture of powerful contrasts, beauty and blood, ceremony and silence. Despite their massive influence, by around 400 BCE, the Olmecs disappeared. No massive war, no climate disaster, no single smoking gun. Their cities were slowly abandoned. The colossal heads fell into disuse and were buried by time. The jungle reclaimed their temples, and a new wave of civilizations, Maya, Zapotec, Teotihuacan, rose from their shadow. But here's the twist. Traces of the Olmecs are everywhere. Their art, their symbols, their pyramid-building traditions, even their religious themes, jaguars, duality, life and death, echo loudly in the cultures that followed. It's as if the Olmecs didn't die out. They were absorbed, their memory transformed into myth, their legacy passed like a torch through time. Still, their personal story remains veiled. What language did they speak? Were the faces on the stone heads portraits of rulers, warriors, or gods? Why are there so few depictions of women in their art? Did their elite rule by force, by faith, or by both? And most haunting of all, did they know they were building monuments for a future they'd never see? Today, the Olmec heads are among the most powerful and mysterious artifacts in the world. Visitors who stand before them often describe a feeling of being watched or even judged. Their lips are pursed, their eyes wide, their expressions unreadable. You can stare for hours and still not know what they're thinking. But perhaps that's the point. Perhaps the Olmecs never wanted to be understood by us, at least not fully. Perhaps they left behind what they wanted remembered, the image of power carved in stone, meant to outlive fire, storm, and empire. And it has. The heads remain. The cities whisper from under the soil. And the question echoes across time. Who were the Olmecs? Why did they vanish? And what else did they leave behind that we've yet to uncover? For centuries, the Olmecs stood as silent titans of early Mesoamerican history, hidden beneath layers of jungle, time, and myth. But as archaeology progressed, the mystery deepened. These were not just artists of stone. They were engineers, astronomers, and possibly prophets of something far greater. And then, they vanished. But how? Unlike other ancient collapses, there's no single cataclysm tied to the Olmecs. No burning cities, no conquest, no plague pits. Instead, their civilization seems to have faded quietly, gradually, almost respectfully by around 400 BCE. What could explain the disappearance of a culture so advanced, so organized, so influential? One of the leading theories is environmental stress. Evidence suggests that San Lorenzo, their early capital, suffered massive floods. Rivers that once sustained the city may have shifted course or become clogged. Agricultural land may have eroded. In a world without industrial tools or mass infrastructure, the environment was both a giver and a taker. But environmental changes alone don't erase a people. And here's where it gets more complicated. There's growing support for the idea that the Olmecs didn't vanish, they transformed. Rather than collapsing, their knowledge, symbols, and systems were absorbed into emerging cultures like the Zapotecs, the Mix, and eventually the Maya. The pyramid layouts, ceremonial ball games, and even calendar systems used by later civilizations show Olmec fingerprints all over them. In this theory, the Olmecs didn't die out. They became the ancestors of Mesoamerican thought itself. Their identity blurred into those they influenced. Their faces faded from stone, but their ideas lived on. And yet, not all is consensus. Some researchers point to a more political explanation: internal conflict and elite collapse. Perhaps powerful cities competed, perhaps religious authority fractured, perhaps dynasties fell in civil dispute. A cultural unraveling, like so many others in history, where a ruling elite loses its grip and the structure beneath it slowly disintegrates. Still others propose a more controversial line of thought. In the mid-20th century, writers outside the mainstream proposed the theory that the Olmecs may have had transoceanic contact, that their features, especially those depicted in the colossal heads, resemble African physiognomy. This sparked the notion that African explorers reached the Americas long before Columbus, or even before the Vikings. Mainstream archaeologists largely reject this, citing lack of genetic, cultural, or material evidence. The Olmec facial features, broad noses, full lips, are well within the diversity of indigenous Mesoamerican traits. And the supposed helmets on the stone heads? Likely protective headgear worn in ritual ball games, not evidence of foreign armor. Yet, the debate continues, fueled more by politics and identity than by science. For many, the Olmecs have become a symbolic battleground between colonial narratives and cultural reclamation. Meanwhile, modern archaeology continues to shed light slowly, carefully on what the Olmecs truly left behind. Recent LiDAR scans of jungle terrain have revealed lost urban layouts hidden beneath centuries of vegetation. Excavations at sites like El Manati uncovered ritual offerings preserved in mud wooden busts, rubber balls, and even infant skeletons arranged ceremonially. The layers of Olmec life are still being peeled back, inch by inch. And with each discovery, the image sharpens. This was a highly organized, deeply spiritual civilization, perhaps the first in the Americas to develop state-level governance, complex religious cosmologies, and symbolic writing. Yet we still cannot read their language. We do not know their myths. Their oral traditions are lost, unrecorded, their gods unnamed in text. What we do have are monuments. The giant heads, the ceremonial altars, the jade figurines, the echoes of a culture that saw itself not just in the now, but in the eternal. And maybe that's the legacy the Olmecs intended all along. Not words, not wars, but symbols that would outlast any name or king. Something deeper, something elemental. Today, the Olmec legacy challenges us to question how civilizations are remembered. Is it by their armies, their writings, their bloodlines, or is it something more mysterious? A presence felt even when the voice is silent? Stand before one of the colossal heads, and you'll understand. You don't need a translation. You feel the weight of memory carved into basalt. The Olmecs may be gone, but their faces still watch us.